Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep the Mining Podcast. Today's guest is Andrew Cooper, who's an energy specialist with New Gold, a Canadian-focused producing gold mine with a portfolio of 2 core producing assets located in Canada. And also they have a stake in Artemis Gold Blackwater development project also. So Andrew's an enthusiast and a energetic strategic energy management specialist and is an International Energy Member of the Year award winner. And also in 2020, he was inducted into the fellow member with Association of Energy Engineers in recognition of his significant contribution to energy management. So certainly an expert in his field. So in today's episode, he wants to outline why energy conservation needs to be a key component of any mining company's low carbon objectives. So this is definitely an episode that we can all learn from, and obviously it's something that's going to be growing and being implemented into more so into our industry moving forward. So that's welcome Andrew to the podcast. How you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Rob, and keeping well and enjoying life.
That's good to hear. That's what we all need. We all need to keep well and enjoy life. And obviously energy is part of our life. So first of all, just wondered if you can give us a little bit about your background, your career, for people that don't actually know of you or heard of you. Just wondering if you can give the audience a little bit of a flavour of your expertise and your background and your career.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Well, you can probably tell from my accent that I'm not originally from North America, and you have a very international audience, so most people would recognise that I'm from the southern part of Africa. I'm actually born and raised in the metropolis of Bulawayo in Zimbabwe. I studied to be electrical engineer, and I grew up studying initially on the gold mines in South Africa as an engineer. And then over the course of the years, I moved back to Zimbabwe. I spent some time there and with Anglo American at a ferrochrome refinery in Zimbabwe. Then I moved back and I worked in the steel industry in South Africa and the petrochemical industry in South Africa. I then had an awesome stint as selling life insurance in South Africa, which was an awesome development opportunity and a great growth development opportunity. I was then recruited to be the electrical engineer at a salt mine in Ontario in Canada, the largest underground salt mine in the world, actually, and that was a great learning experience. After being promoted to the engineering manager, I was then headhunted to be the energy specialist at New Gold's New Afton mine, where I currently am now.
So I just wonder if you can, before obviously go into your more, I suppose, specialisation, just wonder if you can just tell us a little bit about New Gold and I suppose also your role within New Gold as well.
I really can't speak too much about the actual mine itself. We have 2 operational mines, and my role is at the New Afton mine, where we became the first mine in North America to actually implement the ISO 50001 energy management system. And we have really developed a comprehensive energy management system. And over the course of the year, the mine has won numerous awards for energy management systems at the mine. So we're really focused on improving efficiency, and as a result of efficiency improvement, GHG reduction.
So obviously your specialisation is around obviously energy and energy conservation. Why is this obviously important in, I suppose, in today's world, and obviously in the mining industry?
Energy conservation is, at the end of the day, all about minimizing waste and maximizing efficiency. Within our industry, we have a lot of waste. And in fact, energy waste at a mining operation can account for up to 8 to 10% of your energy expense. Now, when you consider that energy is a mining company's second biggest expense after labor, that 8 to 10% can be significant. If you take a a large open pit operation with the annual energy expense of, say, $100 million a year, that 8 to 10% can account for $8 to $10 million that's being lost every year just through energy waste. So energy conservation has got a lot to do with the minimizing of that waste and maximizing efficiency and getting rid of that energy waste. I call energy waste is basically the low-hanging fruit in the energy basket. It's there for the picking. It's easy to get and easy to eliminate. And that's why energy conservation focuses on reducing that energy waste.
And how would you say mining as an industry compares to other industries? You may know this answer, you may not, but what would you say, how comparable is it mining to other industries in terms of their energy conservation, or even how much do they waste more than other industries?
I can't give you specifics on the different industries, but what I can tell you is from reading numerous studies and articles about the benefits of minimizing waste through a comprehensive energy management system, the numbers are consistent across industries, whether it be the forestry, pulp and paper, mining. It's a consistent 8 to 10% reduction of your energy costs and energy use through the minimization of energy waste. So it's a consistent theme that you'll see across many industries. I know you go into any mine, operating facility, industrial facility, you can ask a question. If you see something not working quite right, you say, well, why are you doing it that way? And the typical answer would be across most industries, because that's how we've always done it. And that is a consistent across boards. I was in a steel plant, and same answers come across from people. They're doing things in an old way because that's how they've always done it. And that builds in waste into a system. And so that 8 to 10% is pretty consistent, Rob.
Obviously, you just briefly mentioned this. Obviously, tackled all the low hanging fruit. What are your thoughts on that, and what do you specifically mean around that?
That's an interesting question, because you hear a lot of companies saying we can't do this now because we've tackled all the low-hanging fruit. We've addressed all the easy wins and tackled the low-hanging fruit. But what I have found from my experience is that low-hanging fruit is what I call the magician's hat of energy savings. I think back to my youth, and I used to sit there and watch television before the days of these brilliant illusionists and magicians we have around the place today that we see on television. But you see a magician used to pull rabbit after rabbit after rabbit out the hat, or endless streams of ribbon out the hat. And I find it's the same with energy waste. There's an abundance of low-hanging fruit, and the more low-hanging fruit you pick from that low-hanging fruit tree, the more low-hanging fruit appears. But you have to sort of nurture that tree, Rob. You can't just pluck something and then hopefully more low-hanging fruit will grow. First of all, you got to pick that fruit, because those fruits are the easy wins and gives you energy to continue on. But you also have to tend to the tree, nurture the tree, and engage your employees in the process, because they do help generate more of that low-hanging fruit. Just recently, an opportunity came up for reducing ventilation energy, another gigawatt hour of ventilation energy. And we've been doing this for over 11 years now. And big opportunities just keep coming up, and employees keep coming up with amazing suggestions.
So what are some of the larger scale projects or issues, would you say, that are not low-hanging fruit, that are maybe more prominent within a mining company, that if they tackled that, then the low-hanging fruit would not necessarily always be there? So what are the big issues, would you say, around energy conservation, what mining companies would need to improve on?
The one big thing in my opinion, Rob, is the implementation of a company-wide system and direction for managing energy. There's a lot of companies who are putting out low carbon statements, low carbon objectives, and within those low carbon objectives, there's a big component of those low carbon objectives that can be addressed primarily through energy conservation. Now that's 8 to 10% of energy waste that you get from implementing a system accounts for up to 15% of your greenhouse gas emissions. So if a mining company, for instance, has set a target to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by, say, 30% by the year 2030, just focusing on energy conservation can get them 50% of the way there. So how do you address that low-hanging, that energy conservation component? And that would be, first of all, making a decision to implement some sort of company-wide energy management system to focus on energy conservation. It's not about just doing one project. Okay, we're going to put a ventilation management system in place at our underground operation, for instance. That's great, and it's important to do, but just doing that alone is not going to get you where you need to be. You need to have a system which engages employees, generates employee awareness, and builds the operational aspects of mining, milling, all the operations, finance, procurement into that system. And that system alone then will drive energy conservation of the facility. So to answer your question, the first thing I need to do is implement some sort of form of energy management system.
Why should energy conservation be the cornerstone of your low carbon objectives?
It all goes back, Rob, to that concept of energy waste, and that energy waste accounting for up to 15% of your greenhouse gas emissions. I sort of mentioned a little while ago about the achieving up to 30%, up to 50% of your objective if you set a reduction of 30%. But in addition to that, what really factors into this is the low cost, sort of high return aspect of energy conservation. One of the constraints facing industries these days is to achieve your low carbon objective, it's going to require some significant capital input. Interest rates are going up. We're in a capital constrained environment, and all-in sustaining capital costs are a key component of indicators in the mining industry. Now you compare that the cost to really get to your sort of what they call net zero or really hit your reductions, people are focusing on the big projects. A lot of that technology is not quite there yet. It will be down the line. And there's that technology comes with a big capital cost. But what energy conservation does, it gives you low cost, easy wins for energy conservation. So you can start working immediately towards your low carbon objectives and improve your cash flow at the same time. So it helps you move forward. It builds a foundation. And then to add to that, if you want to get to, say, net zero, most companies are going to need to look at some form of renewables or purchasing some form of offsets. If you've minimized the waste, if you're only using what you need to use, the amount of offsets and the amount of renewables you need will be minimized. So that really reduces the cost of your long-term energy conservation and low carbon objective goals.
And what will be the first step in achieving this?
The first step, Rob, is to go back to saying, okay, well, I'm going to decide to do it. Yeah. At home, I had a tap that was dripping. I'm sure we've all had taps that are dripping, and the tap will continue to drip until you change the washer. And if you don't change the washer, it's going to carry on dripping. And it's the same with energy waste. Compressed air systems don't suddenly get more efficient. Leaks don't fix themselves. Old lighting doesn't suddenly get more efficient. So the first thing is to make a decision as an organization as a whole to minimize waste, and maximizing efficiency. And that is then driven by the implementation of some sort of energy management system. The Mining Association of Canada have the Towards Sustainable Mining protocol. Those protocols have been adopted by many countries around the world. And within that, they have a climate change protocol. And that really is a foundation for an awesome energy and greenhouse gas management system. So following the guidelines through that is important and will help get you where you need to be. Or there's the ISO 50001 energy management system. It's an international standard for energy management. And that is focused on driving energy conservation and embedding energy conservation into the systems and processes of a company. So it becomes what all employees at the company do on a day-to-day basis as part of just what they do.
And how would you achieve this across obviously the entire organization? And obviously some organizations are pretty large and have multiple, obviously apart from a large company, but multiple operations as well.
Setting direction at a corporate level helps with the implementation at the various operations. The ISO 50001 energy management system, for example, sets an objective within that standard. You set an objective for what you want to achieve. You develop policy, and then that can roll out to the different operations. You've set the direction, and so following those systems, setting those systems up at a corporate level, setting that strategy and direction from a corporate level, and then rolling that out to the various operations. So you get consistency across the operations in terms of what we're doing, what our targets. So everyone's pulling in the same direction. So that energy management really helps get that direction, get that focus, and helps you to get to where you need to be.
Why is engaging your employees in your energy conservation so important? And how do you go about doing that as an organization if you're obviously looking to implement some of these energy systems?
Rob, that's my sort of area of passion, and I'll get on my soapbox now and start talking about this because it's something that I really believe in. I certainly believe we're not in the mining industry, we're not in the energy management industry, we are in the people business. And you can have the best systems in the world, but if you don't have your people on board, it's worth nothing. And with energy management, it's particularly appropriate. Your employees are out there day in, day out. They see what is happening. They know where the improvements go. You just need to tap into that resource and harness what I call that hidden potential to help you with your energy management goals. And your employees are key, the key aspect to making that happen. And I often get asked, well, how do you engage employees in that process? And one way that I've found has been particularly successful is to develop a process, a suggestion process for employees whereby they can make suggestions to help you improve efficiency. Now, I'm sure you've heard of suggestion processes. Most people have some sort of suggestion process in place, but I find a lot of them to be pretty ineffective. So I've come up with a very simple 3-step way to harness potential from employees, and that's called simplify, incentivize, and recognize. And those 3 steps would help. First of all, make it simple. Make it simple for people to make suggestions. I remember one suggestion campaign I was part of at another organization many years ago, and they wanted people to fill in rates of returns and feasibility analysis, and it was a very complicated thing, and people's eyes just rolled into the back of their head thinking, no, this is too complicated, and no one did it. And the response was ridiculous. So it needs to be simple for people. It needs to be sort of, if you do it on an online system, just one click away from your homepage, and people can start making a suggestion. 1 minute or 2 if you type like I do, and it's done. And even make it possible for people who don't have computer access. And that's what a lot of people at mining operations don't realize, is that 60 to 70% of your folks are not on a computer all day. They are underground or on the surface or in the pit, making things happen. So make it easy. If they see something, they can pick up the radio and call a central dispatch to log the suggestion for them. So just make it easy. The second one is incentivize, is to incentivize people to make suggestions. We ran sort of batched campaigns for suggestions, and I got this idea because I've seen people turn from sort of beer swilling, pizza eating couch potatoes into sort of health conscious fitness advocates for 6 weeks of a campaign, just because they could win a cap with a company logo. So we decided to incentivize, and we made the prizes not expensive, but relevant to the topic. So for energy conservation, for instance, we would give random prizes for people who made suggestions, LED lighting, for instance, or solar lighting, or sort of hot water heater blankets, or just simple things like that to help improve efficiency, which drove the message home. And that incentivized program really helped. In this one campaign we ran, we got 127 suggestions through the course of the campaign. And what was awesome is that those suggestions didn't come from one area. It came from the whole cross-section of the mine, from maintenance to finance to procurement to mining to milling. All groups in the mine contributed something, which was fantastic. And then the last step is to recognize people. Now, I firmly believe that not feeding back on a suggestion that comes through does less for morale than not asking for suggestions in the first place. So you need to let people know that their suggestions have been heard, have been listened to, and they are acting on their suggestions. So regular feedback. We used SharePoint to set up displays so people could log on to SharePoint and see the status of their suggestion. Has it been reviewed? Is it in progress? Has it been ignored? And then workflows to notify people who made suggestions, say, okay, look, you made the suggestion, this is where we are. We had public recognition, there were supervisors to recognize people who made suggestions, and people felt heard. I think in many organizations, you can find hundreds of suggestions to improve safety, maintenance, operations, discarded and ignored just like a single sock. They just sit there and not be heard. So implementing a good suggestion campaign doesn't only help with energy and energy management and conservation, but it can be applied to all aspects of your operation.
And lastly, I suppose, what's the outlook for the industry around energy conservation, obviously energy consumption, looking at it as obviously trying to conserve, reduce waste, etc. How do you see the market developing, or obviously mining companies looking at this as an issue and tackling it? How do you see that over the next, say, 12 to 18 months?
The next 12 to 18 months, many companies are focused on a long-term GHG strategy. There's been research, development, innovation happening at the moment to help get us to where we need to be. But that's a longer term focus. I think in the next 12 to 18 months, I don't see the needle moving too much in terms of the big technology wins. That's going to come later, as the technology which is being worked on, being developed at the moment, is commercialized and put into production and made readily available. I know for underground mining operations, we've seen many underground mining operations deploying battery electric equipment underground. That is readily available technology, which is currently being used at mines across Canada, I know for definite. And that's something that's really helping to improve the efficiency, cleanliness, the safety and working environment underground for employees. Funny, those underground battery electric vehicles, not only are they emission-free vehicles underground and use cleaner electricity, but also they use 20% of the energy that we found. They use 20% of the energy of it compared to a diesel-driven counterpart. So they're more efficient as well. So that's one big thing that is happening, and people are deploying currently going forward. I know Copper Mountain in British Columbia There's also an open pit operation, I believe it's in Sweden, that are using trolley assist on haul trucks. So that's existing technology that people are using at the moment to reduce emissions. Longer term, people are working on strategies for how are we actually going to achieve the targets that we've laid out. And there's a lot of focus on getting there in the longer term, but in the shorter term, energy conservation is going to be the route people can take to get the easy wins, to show progress towards those targets. And then as the technology that's being worked on at the moment becomes commercially available and more cost effective, we're going to see those technologies be implemented and emissions reduced.
Andrew, really appreciate your time. Thank you for giving us your expertise around obviously energy and conservation, and obviously you're talking about an important subject. And I think everyone that is listening should look at their own work and just sort of take 5 or 10 minutes just to think about how they can actually reduce some of their waste and conserve energy, which obviously, as we're speaking, there's a lot of things happening around the world with energy. So yeah, appreciate you sharing your thoughts on your obviously expertise around energy. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they have any questions, how can they go about doing that? Can they find any of your work on social media at all?
First of all, Rob, appreciate the opportunity to share the message. I believe it's important. You mentioned the energy situation at the moment. It's important. It's a crisis around the world at the moment. So we can all do our bit to minimize waste and maximize efficiency. If folks are looking to get hold of me, they can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn, Andrew Cooper Energy on LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, I also have a monthly newsletter which comes out where people could read more about energy management and energy conservation.
Great. Thank you for your time, Andrew. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Definitely educational, something that we all should be looking at in our own lives daily, whether that's in work or even if it's outside of work. So hopefully Andrew's giving you some ideas just to think about in your everyday duties, responsibilities, tasks, and yeah, just take a few minutes just to think about what you're doing and how you can potentially save energy so we consume less, and obviously look at doing that in waste as well. So really appreciate your time for listening. Please share this episode amongst others in the industry, but also people outside of the industry, again, because everyone is going to be affected by energy. So if we can reduce it, if everyone can just do that little bit and be part of that, then obviously we'll have a brighter future. So until next time, happy mining.